The NBA periodically releases an MVP ladder showcasing the top 10 players with the best shot to win an MVP this season. In this video, I will go over each player in the top 10 list and discuss what an MVP award would mean for their overall legacy. In 10th place on the ladder is Kawhi Leonard. If Kawhi Leonard somehow wins MVP this year, it would do wonders for his legacy. He already has 2 Finals MVPs, 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards. Adding an MVP would instantly put him in the echelons of Kevin Durant. In fact, it may be just enough for people to consider him better than KD all time, considering KD himself has 2 Finals MVPs and 1 regular season MVP. Kawhi won't have the 4 scoring titles that KD has, but he would have his Defensive Player of the Year awards to show that he's a great two-way player, something that KD himself does not have. In fact, some people think he's better than KD right now all time too without an MVP award. And this is because not many people respect Kevin Durant's rings or Finals MVPs since he got them on the Warriors. All time, an MVP award would solidify Kawhi Leonard as a top 20 player, possibly top 15. It'd be really hard to crack that top 10 though. In 9th place on the ladder is Tyrese Haliburton. If he wins MVP this season, he would be in the top 10 youngest MVPs to win the award, considering he is 23 at the time of this recording, but would be 24 by the time the season ends this year. He would be the first Indiana Pacers player to win an NBA MVP award, and he would instantly be the second greatest Pacer of all time. He may even have an instant huge shot at being the first best Pacer player of all time. Dethroning Reggie Miller might still be a challenge, considering I think Tyrese would need to lead a team to the finals like Reggie Miller did back in 2000, and even play a few more seasons in Indy to solidify himself as a Pacers all-timer. But certainly there would be a great argument that winning MVP is actually more impressive because Reggie Miller did lose the finals. It's not like he won it all. That obviously would be no debate, but going there and losing does make it questionable if we're being critically honest. In 8th place on the ladder is Anthony Davis. If Anthony Davis wins MVP this season, I hate to say it, but this would probably affect LeBron's legacy more so than it would help Anthony's. The NBA media would start talking about how the Lakers are no longer the Kings team and that Anthony is the new king of LA. This may finally be Davis's pathway to escape being seen as a sidekick or a ring chaser, but personally, I think his legacy is in much more need of a Finals MVP more so than a regular season MVP. But don't get me wrong, a regular season MVP would certainly help. His overall resume with a regular season MVP would look nearly identical to Kevin Garnett's resume at the same age, being age 30. At age 30, Davis would have 9 soon to be 10 All-Star selections, 1 ring, and 1 regular season MVP. In terms of best power forwards of all time, Anthony Davis would be closer to the top 5. It'd be tough to get past players like, say, Dirk Nowitzki, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Of course, he ain't touching Tim Duncan with just 1 MVP, but maybe you could bump him up above Charles Barkley, considering Barkley has an MVP but no ring, and if Davis wins MVP, he would have a ring and an MVP. It'd still be highly debatable, but he would definitely be in the top 10, no question. If he's not there already, I mean, you could easily put him in the back end of that top 10 right now. In 7th place is Domantas Sabonis. Who said the center position is dead? Certainly not if Sabonis wins MVP. That would be 4 centers in a row to win the award, back to back to back to back to back. Sabonis would be the second Kings player to win the award since Oscar Robertson was the first. I don't think he'd be the all-time best Kings player, considering topping the Big O would likely need a Kings finals trip and a win there. He would easily be in the top 3. I'm personally surprised he even made it onto the MVP ladder list, and De'Aaron Fox is nowhere to be seen on this current list. But I didn't make the list. This isn't my top 10 picks, but if I had to guess, it is because he is playing more games this season thus far. The Kings are currently a 7th seeded team at the time of this recording, so if he does win and the Kings are still at the seed, it would be the lowest seed to ever have an MVP winner. Currently, Russell Westbrook is the lowest winning MVP on a 6th seeded Thunder team when he won his award. In 6th place is Jayson Tatum. If JT wins MVP this season, he'll finally have a strong case for best player on the planet. Right now, the Celtics have the best record in the NBA, and the best player on the best team historically has been a formula to win both MVP and to be considered the best player in the world. Now, it won't be an undisputed fact, but he'll finally have something to debate with. Beyond being recognized as a current day great, for Jayson to be considered an all-time Celtic great, he's going to need a Finals MVP more so than a regular season MVP on his resume. And I know he's made it to the finals, and getting to the finals would mean a lot to other NBA franchises. but Celtics fans don't care about getting there unless a title banner comes with it. However, it is fair to acknowledge that only 4 different Celtics players won the MVP award for a total of 10 times so far. So Jayson being the 5th would easily put him into discussion as being a top 10 Celtic player. Being in the top 5 would be a little hard, but he'd certainly be in the top 10. In 5th place is Luka Dončić. Like Jayson Tatum, if Luka wins MVP this season, he would have a tangible award to argue with as being the best player on the planet currently. And also, here's an interesting fact: it would be 6 seasons in a row where an international player won MVP, dating all the way back to Giannis Antetokounmpo winning it in 2019. The NBA would solidify itself as a host of global talent. But back to Luka's legacy personally, he would have a strong argument for best player in the world, but in terms of all-time greatest Dallas Maverick, he's going to need a ring and a finals MVP to be even close to Dirk's legacy, and that's just to tie it, let alone surpass it. But that 2nd place spot is definitely his, if it's not his already, without an MVP award. As far as best European player all time, he would be the 4th, technically 5th European to win MVP, depending if you count Joel Embiid as a French player over a Cameroonian player, and you could easily put Luka in the top 10, possibly top 5 all-time greatest Euro players. In 4th place is Giannis Antetokounmpo. If the Greek Freak wins his 3rd MVP, he'd be 1 behind LeBron and 1 ahead of Steph Curry in terms of MVPs. He'd also be 1 ahead of Nikola Jokić. Giannis may need another ring to start getting into the top 15 all-time discussions. To be in the top 10 though, he's going to really need to rack up that ring total, considering only 2 players show up in most people's top 10s with a low ring count, that being Wilt Chamberlain with just 2 rings, but he has some serious records to do the heavy lifting for him. And then Hakeem Olajuwon with 2 rings, but he's one of the greatest defenders ever. Sometimes Julius Erving shows up in top 10 lists with just 1 ring, but he's more of a dark horse. Easily top 15 though. Most players in the top 10 have 3 rings or more on most people's lists. So anyway, back to Giannis. Another regular season MVP would easily solidify him as a top 15 all-time player if he's not there already. But in terms of regular season accolades, his legacy is sorta intact. He's gonna definitely need more rings if he wants to start jumping up in legacy points. In 3rd place is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. If SGA wins the MVP this season, the Clippers will continue to deeply regret getting rid of him. Shai will become the 3rd player to win MVP for the Thunder behind Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. KD spent 9 seasons with the Thunder franchise and Russell spent 11. SGA is in his 5th Thunder season so far, so he may need more playing time before we can consider him the best Thunder player ever. With an MVP though, you may consider him better than say Gary Payton or Shawn Kemp. But the most surprising thing is, as of this recording, he only made just 2 All-Star teams despite playing 4 seasons averaging more than 23 points per game. He currently leads the league in steals per game at 2.3, and he's averaging 31.1 points per game on 54% shooting. Considering his lack of accolades, he is one of the most underrated players in the game today as far as the NBA media giving him attention. The NBA media does not give this man the recognition he deserves, and an MVP could at the very least put his name on the map for people to start recognizing his game on a global scale. In 2nd place is Nikola Jokić. If the Joker wins his 3rd MVP, it'd be no laughing matter. With 3 MVPs, he would have the same amount of MVPs as Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and Moses Malone. He would easily solidify himself as a top 10 center if he's not there already, but there'd be no doubt he's in that top 10. He maybe start inching closer to that top 5. Although to truly be a top 5 center, he might need 1 more ring. But with another regular season MVP, he won't be hanging in the back end of the top 10. He'll likely be around the 6th or 5th spot, depending on where you rank players like Moses Malone, Bill Russell, or David Robinson. But unless he wins more rings, that top 4 spot is pretty locked in with Kareem, Wilt, Shaq, Hakeem Olajuwon, and then of course that 5th spot is up for debate between Moses Malone, Bill Russell, David Robinson, or Nikola Jokić. And in 1st place on the MVP ladder is Joel Embiid. If Joel wins MVP this year, he would go back-to-back, and the NBA would have 3 back-to-back MVPs from Giannis, then Nikola, and now Joel. This would be the first time in NBA history that the league would have 3 different back-to-back MVPs consecutively. Joel Embiid is averaging an insane 36.1 points per game so far this season and is leading the league with his highest scoring average. He is on the verge of winning a scoring scoring title for 3 seasons in a row. The last time a center did this was Wilt Chamberlain. If Joel wins a second MVP, it's definitely time to start putting him in the top 10 center discussion, even if he has 0 rings, considering players like Patrick Ewing usually show up in top 10 center lists without a ring, and then Dwight Howard is also in these lists a lot of times, and I know he does have 1 ring, but he never actually won a ring in his prime. Joel is about to tie Elgin Baylor with 3 separate 32-point-per-game seasons. Michael Jordan has 5, Wilt has 7. So Joel averaging this high of a number is kind of a big deal, considering he's still in the peak of his prime. If he stays healthy, he should easily have at least 3 more seasons of being in the peak of his prime, going from age 29 to roughly 32, and then maybe 5 to 6 more seasons of being a high-level player. So not peak prime, but still really good. All in all though, Joel Embiid needs a ring if he wants that greatest center of all time discussion to start happening. So here is what an NBA MVP would mean for each candidate's legacy. Let me know who you think is going to win the award and who needs the award most this year in the comments below. Don't forget to dunk on that like button and subscribe with notifications turned on. I'm Rebound Rewind, and I'll fast forward to you later.